Good morning, everyone. If you've been sitting for a little while, I'll introduce myself in just one moment. If you've been sitting for a little while, why don't you go ahead and get up for a quick second? Maybe just give yourself a little stretch because we're going to be sitting for a little while going through our presentations. Just give yourself a quick breath in and out, and then we'll go ahead and don't be shy about it. You can work it. You can work it. Maybe get those knees up. I don't know. I need it. I'll be standing. All right. I'm looking over at some staff, making sure we're all okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being early. I hope that everyone has been enjoying getting a chance to walk around the tables with so many community partners that we've had here, enjoying the treats, and now we're going to get started. I am Joaquin Torres. I am your Assessor-Recorder here in the city and county of San Francisco, and it's my honor to present to you with so many of my committed staff, other elected officials that you'll hear from shortly, and community partners to bring you resources to answer one of the most important questions today. How do I afford to continue living in one of the most expensive cities in America? How do we answer your questions in relationship to financial planning and providing you a path wherever you are in accessing those resources all across communities? So I thank you for being here, and I hope that you're thinking right now about what is it that brought you here today. And I'll return to that in just a few moments. But first, I want to give an opportunity for some of our speakers and elected officials and leaders who have joined us today. And first up, I have Aliyah Chisti, who is president of the Board of Trustees for City College here in San Francisco, who are welcoming us into this space. The chancellor could not be here today, but she sends her regards to all of you. And she and I had a chance to meet with her chief of staff earlier on making sure that we continue to have City College be an accessible space. And I know that's important for our president, Aliyah Chisti. Aliyah.
Thank you so much, Assessor Torres. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? Yeah. This is a really important few hours of your day that you're going to spend in building wealth. We all need wealth. We all need to figure out how to sustain it. My name is Aliyah Chisti. I was born and raised in San Francisco. I currently serve as the board president. I grew up in the city. I went to Sunnyside, Aptos, Lowell. My dad came to San Francisco from India in the 70s. And one of the first things that he was somehow able to scramble and do was buy a home here in D11. And it's, over time, some of the things that I've learned. A few years ago, we actually had a situation with the home. We had renovations to it. There was a whole bunch of stuff that we had to navigate with Prop 13. There's been changes to Prop 19 of how the home is passed down to generations. My niece is here. We're trying to figure out, how can we have some of the benefits of the home and the property tax passed down to my niece. So this is a really important conference because the home was probably the biggest asset that my dad had for us. And so building wealth is so important. And I believe economic mobility is incredibly important for keeping people here. City College of San Francisco is so excited to partner in this really important event here. And we also have courses that we partner with the assessor's office on, and a trainee program. We have internships, accounting internships. I encourage all of you to also explore classes at City College that can help build financial knowledge, because it's so, we all need it. And so the more knowledge we have, the more we can pass that down to some of our, for the generations to come. I'm so grateful that, my parents had a hard time navigating it. Me and my siblings have been trying to figure it out, and it is complicated. And so today, with all of the amazing topics that are here, like the Prop 19, real estate, trust, that was a hard conversation of what's going to happen to this home after my parents pass, right? And how is that going to look? So anyway, I'm really grateful to be here. I'm so happy that you all are here, and I hope you get what you need and then you pass that knowledge on. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, President Chisti. And also today we have a panel coming up later on today with the Treasurer and Tax Collectors Economic Justice Center. And Treasurer Cisneros, who's joining us today as well and is going to be speaking in just one moment, has been such a staunch ally around financial justice and empowerment for communities all across San Francisco, again, wherever you are in your path, to making sure that our most vulnerable communities have access to resources and education that helps them stabilize themselves. So Treasurer Cisneros, why don't you come on up, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Joaquin. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jose Cisneros, San Francisco Treasurer. Our office is in charge of collecting revenue for the city and county of San Francisco, then investing that money and managing it and keeping it safe. Many years ago, we started to use the knowledge we have in our office for how to manage money to help people who live in San Francisco better understand how they can manage their money. And as Joaquin just mentioned, we have launched now our Economic Justice Center. It's available over the web, but there's also all sorts of services that you can access, including things like one-on-one financial counseling sessions that you can set up and sign. We'll actually have little mini ones out in the hallway today. Go by our table and find out what it's about and find out how you can set up for an absolutely free one-on-one financial counseling session for you, for your family, for your household. The other effort that we're working on today, and this is what my colleague Becca Loy is speaking on a panel later this morning, is there's a number of programs that unfortunately not everybody's aware of that help prepare your children for their college costs and their other future successes. And there are actually multiple programs, one right here in San Francisco out of our office, and then the state, and then now the federal government. And there are monies that you can access for your kids. We want to make sure you don't miss out on any of those. So once again, remember, the Economic Justice Center, check out that panel later on this morning. Thanks to the assessor for having us here today. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you so much, Treasurer Cisneros. And now it's an honor to introduce Margaret Libby, who is the CEO and founder of MyPath. Treasurer Cisneros just talked about the resources that she's been bringing into communities so we can start financial literacy as early as possible so that young people know how important it is, and maybe they'll listen to Margaret like I did not listen to my mother when she said, save a little bit right now, and it adds up. And I've seen that only once I started listening to my mom later on in life. Sure. You want me to do Supervisor Chen first? Margaret, we'll come right back to you in just one moment. Supervisor Chen from District 11, a staunch advocate for answering this basic question. How do I afford to live in San Francisco? Fighting for working families. Supervisor Chen, please come and speak to our group. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Assessor Joaquin Torres. Thank you, City College. Thank you, Krista. Thank you so much for being present this morning. My name is Cheyenne Chen, Supervisor representing District 11. I am a mom raising two beautiful kids here. So hearing all this is really important. District 11 is also one of the most multi-generational family home ownership in the city. And it is really important that hearing that Prop 19, how Prop 19 is going to impact our senior home ownership in District 11 throughout the city in San Francisco. You know, I have so many constituents actually came to me and asked questions about that. So this is like a great opportunity to continue to learn and to plan for generational wealth, and also, you know, raising two beautiful kids in San Francisco. I know that many family, you know, we struggle with childcare, but the next it's also we struggle with how can we continue to raise our kids that they can actually able to stay in San Francisco. So planning ahead, you know, building ourselves financial literacy and also building our children's financial literacy. It's also very important, and learning how to begin planning, saving, and able to continue to find a path to stay in San Francisco is so important. And I think this is also a great opportunity for small business and for property homeowner to continue to come and learn and to build your knowledge and continue to able to stay in San Francisco and also to be thriving in San Francisco is so important. So have a wonderful rest of the morning. Continue to learn a lot and listen and engage. And my office is also to be here and to be supportive as well. Thank you again, Assessor Joaquin Torres, for bringing this wonderful resources to. I also often claim District 11. You know, when I'm board of District 11, I bring it very close to home. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Supervisor. And before I come to Margaret, just reminding everyone that our controller for the state of California, Malia Cohen, her office is also here to provide resources as well. I know there's a lot that we're throwing at you, I know there's a lot of information. That's just the world that we're living in when it comes to our finances. Just know there's no wrong door, there's no wrong answer, there's no wrong person to talk to. We provide connectivity among all of these organizations to help best get you the resource that you need. And it's just to make sure that your curiosity stays alive. And Margaret knows so much about this, especially keeping curiosity alive for our youth when it comes to finances. So we're so excited to have you here with us today, Margaret. And please do share a little bit with our audience.
Good morning, everybody. And first, thank you to the assessor and his office and his whole team for pulling this event together. I think this is pretty unique when you think about cities across the country, that you have your assessor organizing a day-long summit like this for people to get access to the resources and the organizations and the city agencies that have the tools that we all need to build wealth, keep wealth, and preserve it for future generations. So just huge gratitude to you and your team for pulling this event together. Yes, clapping. Was that a clap? Yes. The other thing that I wanted to start by saying is just to point out that we have a treasurer in this city who has really transformed the role of like what a treasurer does in a city and county. You know, maybe for 20 years. Yeah, and I've been at it about 20 years. I think we were like a brunette and a blonde back when we got started. But, you know, for Treasurer Cisneros to decide that he was going to do what he did with his office and start an Office of Economic Justice that has launched the number of initiatives around making sure people have access to affordable, quality bank accounts, making sure they have access to direct deposit, making sure, helping MyPath, helping my organization scale an innovative idea that we built out with our young people across the city, and then we scaled it around the country. But using his office in that way is really unique. And I think it's not just what he's brought to this city, but now treasurers around the country are seeing themselves as actual agents of change and agents of access to these kinds of opportunities and pathways. So just another round of applause for Jose and his team, because I really, it's amazing what we have here in this city. And I'll say there's just a strong ecosystem of nonprofits, of community development credit unions. Maybe some of you already participate in those. But I know I'm here to talk about MyPath and the work that we've been doing in the last 19 years. I'm rounding up when I say 20. But we got started as an outgrowth of one of those community development credit unions that was founded by Latino immigrants in 1971, right in the wake of the Chicano rights movement, to make sure that there was a way for community members to pool their money together and lend it out to each other and make basic financial services available. And so at one point, I was on the board of that organization, and we decided that we should really start something that would focus on young people, because we heard from so many of the adults in the membership that if they had only known a little bit more, had access to kind of starting saving or understanding credit before they got their first credit card, understanding loans before they got their first loan, they would be in a very different situation. It's much harder to dig yourself out of a situation, right, than to sort of start strong. So I endeavored with a team of young people to figure out what this nonprofit would be like. So we did participatory action research where young people went around, talked to their peers, talked to parents, and even explored what kinds of economic mobility and wealth building strategies were happening in other parts of the world. Because when I looked around at the US, I didn't see the kinds of models that we wanted to be launching out of this nonprofit. And so we looked at baby bonds, which is something that was happening in the UK at the time under Tony Blair. We looked at something called prize-linked savings, which was happening in South Africa and Brazil to kind of help people learn how to save small amounts, kind of building on a lottery model, but making those actual deposits into accounts that would give people the chance to win sums of money. So those early ideas that young people thought were pretty interesting really transformed what is available to young people in wealth building and economic mobility here in the city. They brought this idea of baby bonds to then Mayor Gavin Newsom and said, what do you think about getting this program started here where we'll establish an account for every baby? We'll put a little bit more money into low-income baby accounts, and they'll have a way to build wealth over time. That idea was transformed into what is now kindergarten to college, which is a program that Jose's team has been running and growing over the last dozen years, right? Graduated its first class of high school seniors with a college saving account. They increased the number of people thinking about college and attending college, and especially important because there were more students from underrepresented groups who were aspiring to go to college and getting to college. So I say that to show the kind of ecosystem that we have here in San Francisco, where ideas that young people are coming up with, we have city leaders who will take those and run with those and really grow them and make opportunities available that were not there before. The other idea that they worked on that has been sort of core to what we've been doing is building youth-friendly banking and savings opportunities into youth employment programs so that when young people are earning their first paychecks, they have a chance to start thinking about, how am I going to use this money? How can I start thinking about life goals and connect those to my income and start saving? And that is a program that is now running in youth employment programs around San Francisco. We partnered with Jose's office to expand that. And so, some of you may have children or grandchildren or know young people in your community that have tapped into this program and accessed a bank account young and started this idea of saving and putting it into practice, as they're earning their first paychecks. And so really that's been the core of My Path's work, is this idea of starting young and giving young people the information and the tools to get started and then have that early win. Because when you have your first summer job and it results in a savings account of say $500 or $600, and you realize that you can make that kind of a goal happen for yourself, it's a really powerful experience. And we see them setting bigger goals, and we see them getting into credit and credit building, after they get this process started. The final thing, I see the 1 minute. I'll say the reason that we focus on saving and also credit building amongst youth and young adults is because we feel like saving and borrowing are really two powerful ways for people to start to build wealth if they're starting with less wealth, right? And the most powerful way to build wealth is inheritance, is having something that you can pass on to the next generation. And so that's really what we talk about, is that to the extent you're starting this young and building these practices and having access to and a relationship with a financial institution, you're going to be setting up the next generation to start not from scratch, but to start with a nest egg, with some kind of wealth, with some kind of assets. And that's really the most powerful tool, because as we know, wealth begets wealth. And so once you have it, it continues to build. And so this is why, again, we're so excited to be here and part of this event, and proud to be part of a city ecosystem where the city comes together in this kind of way to promote all of the different ways that community members can start to build wealth, preserve it, and pass it on to generations. And so I will challenge us, though, to think about, still the inequities that we have in this city when we think about high concentrations of wealth in a small number of people. And I think there's always more that we can be doing to support wealth building, and really home ownership being the key way that really happens and can transform a family situation in a community. And so I'm excited to hear all the conversations that come out of today, and hope that we can do some really big structural programs that will ensure that there's more access to pools of money for lower income and everyday San Franciscans to get into homeownership. So again, thank you so much for having us, and check out My Path's table out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Margaret. So I think what you've heard from our speakers is what brings us here today from our perspective, the realities of what you can achieve when you are persistent. I got to imagine it's been incredible for Treasurer Cisneros to see the impact of the first graduating class, being able to graduate from high school with the fruits that program bore over many, many years. The importance of that diligence and the importance that those dollars make in a student's and a young person's life. And certainly what that means for any of us if we're slowly thinking about how we're paying attention to our finances. But just a quick question for you, and you can just raise your hand and tell me, just give us a sense of what brought you here today. Does someone want to share just a basic question that they wanted to see answered? Sure. So learning about estate planning and trust planning, so we'll hear more about that shortly. Anyone else want to share? Just take 2 more comments. Sure. So thinking about seniors and the resources that we have available for seniors. And yes. And then major statewide policy changes, understanding the relationship between Proposition 13 and Proposition 19, which just passed back in November of 2020. Any other comment? Okay, so just giving you a sense of what's drawing people in today. And also remembering that because of the outreach we've been doing, people are showing up. And I know many of you that are standing, my apologies. This is a sign that there is a lot of demand for this. I know upstairs is already full. We did a separate room for that as well. But this is the place to be because all chairs have been taken. But isn't that, we can expand for next year and see how we can have some more seats available here at City College. All right. Next slide, please. So as I was mentioning earlier, what is one tangible thing you want to take home from today? Just one tangible thing, just to think about that for yourself. A lot of thoughts come up when we talk about finances. A lot of family conversations come up when we talk about finances. A lot of nerves and anxiety comes up when we talk about finances. Just know that that's going to be in the room. As we talk about some of the things. What did I do? What did I not do? What choices I should have made? We're here today. You can start with where you're at, because we're already here, and we'll go from there. Connecting with government agencies, nonprofit organizations, getting answers to the questions that you just raised today, and then always know you can come to us with your questions. All right, next slide, please. All right, so just in terms of what we'll go over today, the resource fair that you've already been connecting with is happening all day. You can see that on the bottom here. The one-on-one consultations will have already begun. They started at 10:45 a.m. Everyone has a chance to go there and take advantage of those. So please do see our staff there up on is it second floor or third floor? Second floor. The stairs, they threw me for a second. We're going to be talking about, what the basics of our office, what we do. We'll talk about estate planning, and we'll have an in-depth presentation from our partner and partners at HERA, Housing Economic Rights Advocates, and we'll then have a conversation about financial empowerment specifically for women that are heads of households. But it applies to everyone, those tenants, but we're talking specifically about the realities for women who are heads of households in San Francisco and the economic challenges that are presented to them and that they need to navigate. Am I going too fast? Okay, all right. I will. HERA stands for Housing Economic Rights Advocates. And I will slow down. The coffee is very good. It takes a village. Here are all our community partners. Should I go through them? You've met them, but from elected officials to government organizations to community partners that fund their services and the city and the state funds, they're the ones who make this work possible. So there are so many doors that can help you enter into conversation around financial empowerment for yourself and your families. Next slide, please. All right. we're going to go into the Assessor-Recorder one-on-one. Who knows what I do? So property taxes is close. That's more for Jose when he sends you a bill. Is he gone now? Is he? I can say these. And you were going to say in the back. Oh no, but she raised her hand and was going to say something about what does the assessor do? Okay, all right. That's the assessor assesses property values. That's correct. What does the recorder do? All right, that's one of the things that we do. We'll dive into that right now. All right, so next slide, please. Can you go back one slide? Okay, great. We can go here. So, what do we do? These are the questions that we get. How do I find my assessed value? How is it determined? What do I think if my assessed value is too damn high? When will I get my new assessed value after a change in ownership? So timelines that come up. And what has changed recently for leaving my property to the next generation? Prop 19 that we said we were going to talk about. All right, next slide, please. So very simply, this is what we do as an assessor and recorder office. Fair and accurate assessment. So all real property in San Francisco. If you just think about your favorite view of the city, what do you see? You see the land, you see all the property on top of it. Those can be commercial properties, those can be residential properties, those can be vacant properties, those can be schools, churches, other charitable use organizations and their properties. All of that has value in San Francisco. And then in terms of the recorder side, there's hundreds of documents that we're responsible for recording. Those include deeds when property has been purchased. Those include a reconveyance when you finally paid off your mortgage. Those include a marriage certificate that you received after you've gone through the achieving and obtaining your license and making your marriage vows, and so many other records. So this is the work that we do, and also you can see here that our staff, like today, are grounded in community, present with you to make sure that there are questions that we can answer. And I can't tell you how many nitty-gritty things come up in these conversations that we're able to help resolve. And certainly sometimes, even if the news is bad, it's the clarity that can be helpful of just understanding why am I in this position and why don't I like it, and here are the reasons why. So we're responsible for being just very honest brokers about what's happening with government and how that applies to you and what we can do to potentially change that. Next slide, please. The impact, if you're thinking of that view of San Francisco and you're thinking of all of that property, all of that adds up to the most stable, secure source of funding for the city and county of San Francisco. There's over $361 billion in our assessed value roll. That ends up equating to $4.2 billion in actual revenue that supports everything we care about in the city, from our schools to our roads to safety on our streets to our educational institutions to our ability to actually have people that get to do our work, that are addressing the homeless crisis that we have here, not only in San Francisco, but across the country, and also think about the affordable housing that we need to ensure that people can afford to live here and have their basic amenities like a home. And then we have those exemptions that are also calculated by our office. $23 billion worth of exemptions, those charitable uses that I talked about earlier, like hospitals and schools and religious organizations. To make it really simple about how those dollars are divvied up, after we assess all the value of that real property, apply those exemptions. If you think about it like a $100 bill, $64 of that Ben Franklin goes towards city services, $34 of that Franklin go to support our schools, and the remaining $2 from that Franklin go to support the Bay Area Rapid Transit, BART, and also our Air Quality Management District. So this is just a very simple way of thinking about when we are able to do our work as an office, that means that the revenue fairly and accurately assessed, no more nor less, just doing our job. When a property changes hands, we're able to value it. We're able to do that in a timely manner. That means that value gets placed on the roll, which means then it becomes calculated by the treasurer and tax collector and controller. Then the bills go out to residents and commercial owners as well. so that everyone is paying their fair share so that we can provide the resources that the city needs. We are the beginning of that process of generating that revenue necessary for San Francisco to function. So thank you for those of you who are paying property taxes. This is the reality that you are the reason we're able to be successful for this portion of the largest, most stable, secure source of funding for the city. I'll take one just because you're right here, but I might not be able to answer it in depth. Mm-hmm. So there was a comment just being made about the cultural contexts that we're living in and the economic impacts of living on stolen land was a comment that was made here, and making sure that we're understanding how we're reinvesting in equitable community impacts through the resources that we have as well. Next slide, please. One of the things that we're thinking about is that the challenges that we are facing as an office are grounded in the realities of what's happening in the economy. And I'm just sharing this with you so when you read those headlines about what's happening downtown, or you are trying to understand, well, how is the pandemic still impacting us today? Well, these are some of the reasons why. We have a record number of appeals that we are addressing here in San Francisco because there are questions about how market value of a property relates to the taxable value, the assessed value of a property, and that is creating the highest number of appeals that we've seen in our office in at least 25 years. We know that has an impact on our city's budget because as values decline, that means less resources that are coming into our office. And this is all governed, as is all of our work, by the law of the state of California. Next slide, please. This is just an example of the increase that I was talking about and the pressures that are placed upon our office. This is just to articulate the relationship between what's happening in the economy, major events in the globe that have an impact on us here at home. You can see that before the pandemic, a little over 1,500, a little over 1,600 appeals slowly grew. We knew it was going to be a tsunami-like effect. And then suddenly we saw 2,000, nearly 3,000, and then bumping up the past 3 years, 8,000, 9,000, and then nearly 9,000 again. We're expecting to see 2 more years of this as we continue to work through receiving appeals and working through resolving those appeals for both residential and commercial property owners. Next slide, please. Why is this significant? It's because it affects on how we're able to do our work, the time in which we're able to get to someone. Because we have over 14,000 items that we have not yet gotten to when people are changing hands in ownership, it not only affects revenue, but it also affects the taxpayer. And when am I going to get an answer around how much I owe you? And how do I start preparing for that work? Well, it's going to take some time. State law provides up to 4 years to work through that process if a property changes hands. On the appeals process, we only have 2 years to get through that process. And that becomes important because fair and accurate value means that someone is not going to get their stated value of a property when they're appealing of $1, let's say, for multi-million-dollar properties, but rather the actual decrease that might be allowed to them under state law. And I'll come and take questions towards the very end. And then this other question of for a single-family homeowner, just trying to understand when I'm not receiving information in a timely manner, what that means to me, how confusing it is that we were talking about earlier. These are some of the repercussions of us not being able to do our work. But we are very well staffed right now. We are pushing and organizing our office to have very, very high productivity to reduce those impacts to so many people here in the city. Next slide, please. All while we're dealing with those challenges, we're staying focused on the future as an office. We're, again, meeting all of those statutory deadlines to make sure that people are paying their fair share. We're enhancing our experience for all of you, whether in person or online. We're providing this education in person. We're talking about estate planning and the concerns that you've been raising with our office. And also at the same time, we did something that many people didn't think was possible. I mean, many of you might have read about the school district and issues they had with a technology project that affected their ability to pay people and their payroll system. We finally delivered a new brand new property assessment tax system for all systems within our office, coordinating with the controller, with the treasurer and tax collector, the basic plumbing that allows us to do our work, the basic infrastructure and electrical grid that allows us to do our work. It allows us to communicate with each other as an office. It makes it easier for you as a taxpayer and a property owner to engage our office online if that's preferable to you, while all maintaining still access to our office and individuals and people, because all of that is important. In addition to this, you can see here in the Chronicle did a very nice report on us that we digitized over 7 million records, being able to allow for you to purchase those in real time. We're one of the first in state, or the first in state office, to be able to provide this type of resource. We're seeking to be one of the most digitally accessible offices in the state of California, and we're well on our way to doing so, all while maintaining access to you in person, access to you in our office, access to you online through email, and still being able to take your phone calls. Next slide, please. All right. This is a disclaimer. This is my favorite part. We can't provide guidance. We can't provide advice, but we can tell you the lay of the land so you know what you're walking into. It's so important for each person. Again, as questions come up, the starting point should be every single person's question about a property, even though there are general answers, are very specific to the unique circumstances that you are facing. It's so important in this environment that you're paying attention to the details of your very specific property. It's very important that any advisor you're talking to, no matter how credentialed, that you're making sure that you know to ask them, have you checked in with the assessor's office about this? Are there any new laws out there that you're aware of? That's one thing I really want you to take away from, is that you do have much more power about the most basic questions that many people who are sophisticated sometimes forget to ask. And that can have a bad impact on you as someone who they're working with. So just remembering to ask those questions, never be shy about them, but just know that with our office, we're not providing guidance or advice. You want to have those conversations about the specific, particular circumstances of your financial situation, especially in relationship to your property. Okay? So here are some of the questions that come up for us. This is a big one. I was just talking about this with someone before we began today. Why am I paying more in one area, in one neighborhood than my next door neighbor, or why is my neighbor paying less? Similarly, we get questions like, I read on Zillow that property values in my neighborhood have dropped by 5 or 10%. Why do I not get a reduction in my assessed value? Why is that fair or not fair? Or why can't I simply leave my property to the next generation with my current assessed value so they can benefit? And the answers to so many of these questions are all in state law. They're very rigid. They're they have a lot of deadlines to them. They're property and scenario specific, as I mentioned, and they frankly require a lot of time to really understand them. So that's why we're here today. Again, a basic question is, the reason for this is because of the rules of the California Constitution and Prop 13. Sorry, you can keep it on the previous slide for a moment before I come to this. And this is like just a nice basic grounding for what I'm about to talk about. The reason someone is paying less is because they paid, most likely the most common reason is that they bought their property many, many years ago. And the rate at which their assessed value increased over time has led to this number. If they bought more recently when the market value of those properties was higher, they're going to be paying a larger amount in property taxes based on time. And that's how the law was designed. And there are a lot of conversations that are out there right now about changes that people desire for Prop 13 for a variety of reasons. I like to continue sharing, and I think that you should continue sharing, is that when people talk about Prop 13 reform, you always want to make sure they're talking about, what about people on limited incomes? What about me as a senior when I know that my property taxes are increasing by 2% definitively year over year because that's what the law provides? You have a cushion, but it does increase by that 2% every single year. If you're going to change Prop 13, how are you addressing that question for those of us who are on limited incomes? And again, one of the most expensive cities in America. and one of the most costly states in America, with all of the associated benefits, but still, that is a reality we want to pay attention to. Next slide, please. All right. So here are the basics of Prop 13, passed back in 1978. Essentially, what you have here is your assessed value, your property tax rate that's around 1%. It has a few things that are added to it, like parcel tax measures that pass every year, special assessments that are included in very particular areas, around a point X amount that are added to that 1%. And after your assessed value has been determined for the year, they are applied to that number, and then you get the bill from who? From Jose. From Jose. I send you a very nice envelope that says, "This is not a bill. This is not a bill." Jose sends you the bill. The bill. The reason we send you that notice of assessed value is because if there's any questions you have on there, if you're like, wait, what's going on here? You have a chance to reach out to our office. You know, because you received it the year before, that I think I might be eligible for a reduction in value. You can reach out to our office to have that question answered. But really, once you receive that bill, because of how state law is guided, those questions are with the treasurer and tax collector, Jose Cisneros. And I know I'm making jokes about it, and he and I joke about it all the time, but really there's a layering to this so that you have the time to respond before that bill comes. So please do pay attention to that item, and I'll talk more about how you can access that. If you lose that piece of paper, forget about it. I mean, there's a lot of mail that comes our way these days. Next slide, please. All right. So essentially, I'm trying to figure out how I can be with you while also going through this. May I sit right here with you? Thank you. All right. So you can see here the setting for assessed value. You see the timeline on the left, 1990. 1990, what a year, $100,000 for that house. You can see that the assessed value today is only $203,000, to which that 1 plus X% is applied. But the market value of that property in 2026 is $1.3 million. So your taxes are based on that lower amount, but the market value is what you see up above. That's the basic premise of Prop 13. That's the cushion that it allows for you. Next slide, please. So state law, so answering that question is, well, when do I get a reduction in value, as some people have been benefiting from during the pandemic, or as impacts from the pandemic play out? You're eligible for that temporary. Absolutely, I'm sorry. Certainly. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm just going to repeat for our translators in ASL so we can get this information out. So again, if you look on the left, of the slide, you can see that there's $100,000 that the property was purchased for back in 1990. You can see the assessed value on the bottom line that increases by no more than 2% each year, as is allowed by state law. So it's going to be taken, so it does increase by 2%. So that today, in 2026, the value of that home is, from assessed value, is $203,000. But in 2026, does anyone know of a house you can buy for $203,000 right now? All right, so the market value of that home is $1.3 million, but you're not taxed on that top number. Your taxes are based on the lower number of 2026, or the number that state law provides for. Okay? Next slide, please. Great, thank you. So when am I eligible for a decline in value? When the market value drops below your assessed value. And there's two ways to receive that temporary decline in value. One is to reach out to our office at the beginning of the year, from January 2nd until March 31st. If you believe that the market value has dropped below your assessed value, what you see on the notice that I send you. If you don't like the answer, if you don't like what you receive on your notice after you've had that conversation with our office, you always have the opportunity, it's your right, to file that formal appeal with an independent body, the Assessment Appeals Board. There's a cost to that, $120 for all property types. That due date is September 15th, and they open up those applications in July. just remembering. You don't need to remember the name of the office. You don't need to remember you can just type it into onto the web. You can just simply Google it and say, where in San Francisco do I appeal my property taxes? And it will guide you to this. SF.gov will do the same. If you just go to the SF.gov website, you can call 311. So again, just remembering, you don't have to remember, there's a lot of pathways to get the answers that you need. Next slide, please. All right, so here's an example of someone saying, well, I thought I was reading in the paper that property values are dropping in my neighborhood. I should be eligible for a decline in value. Well, here is a situation where that doesn't happen. You purchased it for $200,000, this home, in 1990. The assessed value in 2025 was, say, $400,000 on the bottom, but the market value in 2025 was $1.5 million. So there's no change there because the red line is above the blue line, or the market value is well above the assessed value. Next slide, please. This gets a little bit more complicated. Just bear with me here. So there's a lot of confusion that happens around sometimes you receive a temporary reduction. Thanks, Al. A temporary reduction 1 year because we have to revisit it every single year, and then the next year, the following year, it gets bumped up because the market rate value has now bumped back up again. Sometimes it can seem as though we're charging you 2% more than 2% than you were paying the year before, but state law provides it's that constant blue line that's always active over time. So that number always exists that we have to come back to when we're determining what your taxable value is going to be. And so sometimes that can feel like it's greater than 2% if there's a big jump, but really we're always paying attention to that blue line. So you can see here, property taxes in the first couple of years, you can see market rate value is above, assessed value remains below, but then suddenly in that year you see that red line drop below the blue line. And that's when a temporary reduction is justified under state law. You can see it stays stable for a year and a half. It slowly inches its way up. It's not quite there yet. And then market rate value begins to exceed the blue line. And then you'll see the resetting consistently of 2% year over year after you reach that point. So that's how that works. Again, particular questions for you, just go ahead and reach out to our office. We're always happy to walk you through that process for your particular property. And I do receive emails about this. There's constant conversation that we and the team have to make sure that people understand the dynamics of what's at play and why or why not an informal review was granted. Next slide, please. Again, if you lose that piece of paper, not to worry, we have the community portal. You can register after a quick registration process. You can always access these in the evening. You can email us through that portal. That's why we have it built here. So you have another way on your time, on your schedule, to reach out to our office online and get this information. You can view it there. You can print it there. And again, you'll notice that what I send you is not a bill. It's an annual notice. And it gives you time. It gives you time to get situated around what's coming your way, so you can continue to plan for your obligation. Next slide, please. Remember, you want to file an appeal with the Assessment Appeals Board. If you want to go through that formal process, you want to pay your taxes on time. You want to pay your taxes on time and in full, even if you disagree with the number, because that is what state law provides. I can't tell you how many times I've had to unfortunately share with a taxpayer, you're going to need to pay that bill. If you miss a deadline, you're going to have to pay penalties and taxes. You're going to have to talk to Jose about that because he can reinforce the law does not allow him any room to give you a break on that. I've had people come in hours after the deadline and say, I just missed it. And it's after the hour. They missed it by a couple of hours. They get charged the penalties and fines. So for them, it was about a $600 fine, and then it's just easily avoidable. But just please pay attention to those deadlines when you receive the bill from Jose. When you receive the bill from Jose, it'll have the deadlines in there, as all of you know. Just constantly remember that. All right. Some things to remember from the AAB: they can lower your assessed value, or reverse a certain change in ownership, or new construction assessment. So, you know, the purchase price is not always the assessed value. But there are contests that we have about that. So the Assessment Appeals Board helps us work with you on that. New construction, when there are questions about how the value of new construction, something else important to remember, just because you get a deal doesn't mean that that you're going to get that deal on your taxes. It's about the fair market value of those improvements per state law, the fair market value of those improvements. And the same thing applies to a sales price. I got a great deal on this home. What a slam dunk. Not always as it pertains to your property tax obligation under state law. What is a fair market value of that property with all of the conditions that state law asks for? And that's something to always remember. I know we're always looking for a deal. I love a deal. Every one of us loves a deal. I love a loophole. Every one of us loves a loophole that applies to if we can find it. Just know the law has contemplated all of these things. And while you think that the street is giving you something, taxes and tax law have a different opinion. And they're going to make sure that you're aware of that. So please do pay attention as you're considering these things for your financial planning purposes. What the AAB cannot do, and these are real questions that we get. They can't reduce an assessment because you're paying more taxes than your neighbor. We talked about that earlier. They cannot remove penalties and interest from late payment on your property taxes. They cannot reduce your taxes due to your inability to pay, which is why I was talking about limited incomes earlier. They grant or deny tax exemptions. They cannot grant or deny tax exemptions, change a tax rate, or extend a filing period. So just remember how rigid that is so that you're paying attention to those deadlines. Next slide, please. Resources, again, you have so many people here that can provide you information. Again, San Francisco SF.gov and search on the website, Google search on the website can give you these things. California Board of Equalization, you have the controller here as well, who oversees the BOE and other state agencies. The BOE Taxpayer Advocate is always available for you as well if you're seeking, like, I'm just not getting what I want. I'm hoping that doesn't apply to San Francisco because we try to provide all the answers to your questions and walk you through things so you understand how we came to our determination or how that determination could potentially change based on credible information in the market or characteristics or circumstances of the property that we might not have generally been aware of. That is our work. That is our work. And also the Assessment Appeals Board, which again is an independent body overseen by the Board of Supervisors. Next slide, please. All right. Do we take a quick break here at all, or we just keep on going through? All right. Keep going. All right. Dan, that was fantastic. Okay. No, these are the ones I want. All right. A quick editorial comment from me. I'm really upset about number two. I hate having to be the messenger of a law that was passed that was, in my opinion, was misleading. I just have to say that so that you don't feel like everyone's ignoring the elephant in the room. Part one, the base year value transfer, that's what all of us thought we were voting on, to be very frank. But I'm Joaquin and that's Al. But to be very frank for a moment, the base year value transfer about helping seniors, those who were impacted by natural disasters, who were impacted by fires, that was what was on our mind because in October when we received our ballots, that's when day was night, sky was orange, and we were thinking about people who were suffering. And in that moment of crisis is when some people took advantage of us and said, well, the way we're going to pay for that is through number two. Intergenerational transfer exclusion. All right, so this is the first major change to Proposition 13 since 1978, and it happened in those circumstances. Next slide, please. I'm going to tell you right now and go through what that means. So the most beneficial that many people have been happy about is the base year value transfer. Who qualifies is just what I said, those who are 55 years of age or older, those with disabilities, those who were impacted by a natural disaster like a fire or an earthquake or a flood. It allows for a homeowner to transfer that home's taxable value, that factored base year value, that lower line that we were seeing in previous lines, to any replacement home anywhere in California. You're allowed to do that up to 3 times. You only used to be able to do that once, so now you can do that 3 times. And you can purchase a more expensive property, and there's an upward adjustment for the delta between the difference between the value of your previous home and the new one, if that's the direction you want to move in. So you have that flexibility based on resources, but really what this is intending for is it offers that flexibility, but also gives you a chance to, given the housing market, given prices of homes here in California, you can take that factored lower value and apply it to a new home. Next slide, please. Intergenerational transfers. So this is the more controversial one. Before Prop 19 was passed in November of 2020, this became active in February of 2021. So just think about what 2021 was like, 2020. So passed in November, right before the Thanksgiving holiday, right before Christmas, and then became active right away in February. What a beautiful Valentine's gift that was. And I'm being facetious. You could transfer up to $1 million in assessed value of other property to your children and your grandchildren without reassessment. Without reassessment, meaning that you could maintain your lower value. After Prop 19, the child or grandchild must use the home as their primary place of residence within 1 year of transfer. And then the exclusion would only apply to the first $1 million in market value above the factored base year value. And then any other delta there, that would have to be added to your tax bill. So again, you would have to live, the person who had the home had to be living it there in their present, as their place of residence. It's where you're voting from. It's where you're paying your utility bills primarily. It is where you're going to and from for work on the most consistent basis. That's your home. Next slide, please. And then the beneficiary, that also had to be their primary place of residence under a certain timeline. So to receive tax savings back to the transfer date, both of the filings, so again, let me just pause for a moment. This is all really complicated. There's deadlines and dates associated. There's paperwork associated. All I want you to take away from this are these basic questions. Call the assessor's office when you're pursuing Prop 19. Make sure you understand what the rules are. And then secondarily, know that there are 2 things you want to be paying attention to, generally. What paperwork do I need to file? When do I need to file it by? And are there any other rules for the person who's going to be inheriting the property, like a timeline in which they have to occupy the home, that they need to know? I just want you to remember those basic things. And the most simple one is just call our office. What do I need to know? We have checklists for you if you're working through this process. So let me just kind of come back over here. You have 1 year to file a homeowner's or disabled veterans exemption. You have 3 years to file a separate file, a Prop 19 claim form. You can see that they have different names, which are very easy to remember, like BOE 261, or BOE 266, or BOE 19P, or BOE 19G. So just again, remember, like, there's a lot that you want to be paying attention to. You want to be asking our office, like, what do I need to fill out? Which documents? We will help you with that. Next slide, please. Just some general timelines for you to be aware of. Lien date January 1st is when is how all value of properties are determined. It's based on that date. The exemptions deadline for those who are pursuing them is February 15th. The informal review deadline, when I talked about, hey, I think my market value has dropped below my assessed value, you want to reach out to us by March 31st of that year. So right now is a good time to think of, like, hey, I think next year this might be the case, and reach out to our office about that. June 30th, this is more city interest than yours. This is when we close the roll. All of those billions of dollars of assessed value, all that work that's been done gets submitted so that we can start generating the revenue based on those values. And then again, for the Assessment Appeals Board outside of our office, with the Assessment Appeals Board, September 15th is the deadline for them. Sometimes that changes based on a weekend if it falls on a weekend, but September 15th is that deadline. Always think about trying to get there earlier, asking your questions before that deadline. And then on real properties we've talked about, July, I send you the notice of assessed value. In October, the tax bill comes from who? Jose. Lovely white shirt, great brown blazer, right? So he sends that bill in October. So again, you have this timeline to be thinking about those numbers. So when you receive that notice of assessed value, if you have any questions, then is it time to reach out to our office. For business personal property, small businesses, or possessory interest, if a business is operating on government land, there's different timelines for those. July for a notice and a tax bill, and then August when that tax bill is due. Next slide, please. All right. And again, just if you do have questions, raise your hand because we're going to put them on cards so we can start reviewing them and see how best we can answer them in our presentation process. And your contact information as well. So your number, your email address. We will get back to you. So please do raise your hand and we'll start handing out those cards now. We're coming to you right now. Yeah, and unfortunately, just because of where we are on time, we can't answer questions right now. And if you have some immediates, Al is here who can help answer some of your questions as well, and other staff can also help. Excuse me. Yes, you can, however best you want us to reach out to you, but email is great. And Al will go to answer those questions in the hallway. As we were talking about, it's so great to see you. We have our community partner, HERA, Housing Economic Rights Advocates, who are going to be making a presentation about estate planning. Again, as you heard President Chisi talk about, these conversations can be hard to have. This is about passing on. Everything you've worked for to the next generation, and also the importance of taking this seriously, even though it's difficult. Which is why we've been going to churches, we've been going to community meetings, letting people know about this resource. We started this with philanthropic funds. These are not taxpayer dollars beyond our staff time working with our fellow nonprofit, and making sure that free or low-cost estate plans can be provided to you. So we got philanthropic dollars to focus this work in the southeast part of the city, because that's where communities of color and home ownership aligned, because that's where the need has been for this resource, and also in the Western Addition, so that we're focusing on the realities of estate planning for Black households in the Western Addition in the face of the context of redevelopment and the impacts that had on the Black community there. So I'm very, very honored that Kendra is now going to be providing a presentation to all of you around estate planning, and I've been doing my best to have the shortest intro possible so we can get to the nuts and bolts of estate planning and what it can mean for all of you. So thank you very much. I'll be back shortly.
Thank you so much, Assessor-Recorder Torres. Thank you so much for putting this event together, and I'm delighted to be with you this morning, almost afternoon. So we'll jump right into estate planning. Essentially, at the end of this, I hope that all of you will understand that each one of us, as long as we're over the age of 18, needs some type of estate planning. So we're going to break things down for you. Let's get started. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to discuss the what, who, when, why, and where of estate planning. Next slide. So first, let's discuss a couple of barriers, a couple of myths that typically stand in the way of people completing their estate planning. Some folks say, hey, I'm going to rent. I don't have that much. I don't need estate planning. Well, at the end of this, I think you'll gather that if that is your situation, that is false, because you have your financial business. You also have your health care. So some of estate planning deals with putting people in place for those potential roles of responsibility down the road when you cannot effectively advocate for yourself. We'll jump into that towards the end of the estate planning. Next slide, please. This is the myth where folks understand that the state of California has some type of mechanism. We may have heard from neighbors, a single parent pass away, passes away, and somehow the house will go to the 3 children. It is a messy, extensive process called probate. We want to avoid it in any way we can, and we're going to present some tools for you soon. Plus, even though California does have that default mechanism, you may not want everything to go to your 3 kids equally or to all of your siblings equally. So as long as you do indicate that in properly executed estate planning documents, that will very, very likely guide if for some reason your estate goes to 2 of your siblings rather than all 3. You can do whatever you would like with your stuff as long as you do put those intentions in properly executed estate planning documents. Next slide. Another myth is sometimes I have folks who come to our office, they were going away on a trip and they created a will. They're a homeowner, but they thought, now I'm done. I don't have to worry about my estate planning. Well, regrettably, if you are a homeowner, if you own a home, obviously subject to a mortgage like all of us have, if you only have a will, that does not avoid probate in the state of California. It is a false sense of security. Plus, a will doesn't kick in until people pass away. We care, and this office cares about all of you during those latter stages in life. If you should have dementia, Alzheimer's, have some other condition where you need people to step into your shoes to advocate for you, either financially or with respect to healthcare issues. A will does nothing to effectuate that towards the end of life. Next slide, please. And then the last myth, we may have heard stories, I'm not worried about it. My family is close and tight. Everyone understands what is to take place one day. Well, when the parent passes away, the kids are probably at their worst, feeling vulnerable and sad. Sometimes spouses get into the mix. We see those little horns come up in people. We do not see the best in people at that vulnerable stage. So it's much better to complete your estate planning while you can, while you have your capacity to help keep that family peace down the road. Next slide, please. So estate planning is a process and involves your property, but it also involves the people in your life, in your circle. You create documents now to address future needs. And while a will can sometimes be a part of that process, it's not the only document that most of us need. Next slide, please. These are the 2 different groups of estate planning documents, and we're going to break them down together in the next 45 minutes or so. So the documents in blue are those that are typically important while we are alive, yet compromised, if we don't have legal capacity to do things on our own. The documents in green are the documents that really kick in when people pass away, and that would include a trust for homeowners and a will, perhaps for people who don't anticipate owning a home here in California. Next slide, please. So we're doing estate planning now while we have capacity to address incapacity later and also for post-death planning. Next slide. So we're going to dive into the larger topic of estate planning. What do we need to make sure things go smoothly after we pass away? Next slide. In California, we have a probate threshold. So if you own assets gross that total over $208,850, there will likely be a probate unless you take steps to avoid probate here in California. So that is the key figure. The good news is we have various tools to avoid probate. Next slide. So let's look at the upper row. On the top row on the far left, we have a tool which is called a revocable living trust. It is a structure that a lawyer or law firm would create, and you will create this trust so that you are completely in charge of all of your assets until you're no longer here. A lawyer would create that trust and help you put your assets into that trust. So if you are a homeowner, it's very important for that attorney to create a new grant deed that will be filed with Assessor-Recorder's office, where you grant your property to yourself. It seems odd. as trustee of your trust, you still own it. You can still take a mortgage out. You can sell it. You can spend all the money. You're not accountable to anyone other than yourself if you create a revocable trust. But the main thing is it is a tool to avoid probate. When people pass away, there's a little administrative process, and essentially the assets in the trust would, in a very streamlined fashion, go to the beneficiaries as indicated in the trust. Next bubble, second from the left on that top row. Again, this is for property owners. You can create what is called a transfer on death deed. So once in a while, we have folks who are going away, in a couple weeks or have surgery coming up next week, and they just want to make sure that their home would avoid probate should something unforeseen happen to them. Well, a transfer on death deed is a 2 to 3 page document where you can essentially indicate beneficiaries on that deed. Named beneficiaries could be your 2 kids, could be your 2 best friends. When you file that at the county recorder's office, we're going to look at an example shortly. When you pass away, that property will not need to go through probate, will rather go to the beneficiaries, whoever is alive on that transfer on death deed that you created when you were alive. The second tool that we have, second bubble on the top row from the right, is having basically multiple party accounts or a transfer on death, a POD, pay on death account. So you can go to a financial institution and let them know that you want to have beneficiaries on your account so that when you pass away, your account will once again, in a streamlined fashion, go to those named beneficiaries. As long as when you pass away, one of those beneficiaries is alive, that account will go to those parties without going through the probate proceeding. And then on the far right upper row, we can just have assets that don't total over $208,850, and then your estate will not go through the probate proceeding. Let's look at the bottom row. In the middle and on the far left, we can own property with a spouse as community property, with right of survivorship, or with siblings as joint tenants. That can avoid probate as to the first death. So for instance, if I have siblings who are together on a deed and one of them passes away, okay, the surviving sibling will not need to go through the full probate process if they held it as joint tenants. However, the last person standing needs to actively do something on that upper row to avoid probate down the road when they pass away. So it's not a good tool to avoid probate, but it does sometimes buy a little time if you do own property with the sibling as joint tenants or with your spouse as community property with right of survivorship. And then on the bottom row on the far right, with our life insurance policies and retirement accounts, once again, please revisit that paperwork and make sure that you do have beneficiaries down that you like, that you're comfortable with inheriting those assets when you pass away. As long as there are living beneficiaries on that paperwork with those institutions, when you pass away, that asset will avoid probate. So that's the good news. We do have tools to avoid probate. If any of you do estate planning, you don't need to walk into an attorney's office and know exactly what you need. They should really be able to help you choose something that is practical. Next slide, please. So let's look a little bit more in depth at the revocable living trust. Next slide. So a trust can be called many things. It can be called a trust agreement, a declaration of trust, but it's essentially going to be your trust. And when I mean you as a married couple, it'll be your trust with your spouse. And in that trust, you're going to choose someone to inherit your assets. And you're also going to choose someone to be in charge of that process down the road. Could be your eldest child, could be a sibling who is responsible, but that is the crux of the trust. For those who have dependent adults for whom they care and minor children, you will also indicate guardians of those folks in your trust document. That's the crux of the trust. There are things in there to help things go smoothly down the road, such as a spendthrift clause, which basically means that your kids cannot go to the bank when you're sick and say, hey, dad's not doing well. They give him 6 months. I want to use my expectancy here, what I think I'm going to get from him as collateral for a loan. That doesn't work. It's not theirs until it's theirs. It's completely yours until you are no longer here, even if you are incapacitated. And then it would also have a no contest clause, which means that, let's say you distribute everything in your trust equally to your kids, and one of the kids said, gosh, mom promised me 50%, and the other two are only supposed to get 25% each. Well, if it doesn't say that, and they do find a lawyer to take that case, in the end, they won't get anything. So once again, having those clauses in there helps keep the family peace and kind of keeps people on their toes and between the guardrails. Next slide, please. All right, so let's look at the difference in the processes from someone who passes away and, let's say, had a home and had a trust, which is reflected on the left-hand side, and someone who passed away, only had a will or didn't have a will, once again owns real property, and that process is reflected on the right-hand side. So let's say someone had a townhome here in San Francisco, obviously subject to a mortgage, let's say an $800,000 mortgage, something like that, and then they pass away. So on the left-hand side, if they had a trust, there wouldn't be a probate, and this is assuming they placed their property into their revocable living trust. There would not be a probate. It is a private proceeding, a private record. That trust is not filed at the probate court, so no one can really find out where your stuff is going. There are no statutorily guaranteed fees for the trustee in your trust for conveying your property according to your wishes as reflected in that trust. The successor trustee of that trust completes all of the tasks without court supervision. They really don't have to hire an attorney. It's a simplified process, so it does save the estate money. Assets in a living trust are not subject to estate recovery if there are medical problems, etc. The state can go after probate assets, but if you have your property in a trust, that is not considered a probate asset. And it just takes a much shorter period of time and goes to your beneficiaries in a more efficient manner. So let's look at that same person who perhaps had that townhome worth $1 million subject to a loan, and they had a will or didn't have a will. Their process is reflected on the right. So probate would be needed. That will would be filed, so anyone could look up where your estate is going. There is statutory compensation to the person the court appoints to go through that probate process for your estate. We're going to look at those fees shortly. The executor or personal representative, once again appointed by the court, completes all of the tasks under court supervision. We're going to look at a chart so you can see at least even some of those steps. And the assets in a will are subject to estate recovery because of their probate assets. The process takes a longer period of time. It can seem very impersonal, as you can imagine, and it costs more money. So let us be the people on the left. Next slide, please. A will, once again, for those who don't anticipate purchasing a home in California, is fine to distribute assets that add up to less than $208,850 under the current probate threshold. It can be useful to distribute a smaller bank account and, let's say, contents in an apartment. Okay, but if you are doing just a will, and let's say you inherit a piece of real property or end up purchasing one, please make sure to consult an attorney at that point and consider creating a revocable living trust. Next slide. So probate is expensive because it is a court supervised process. So it involves lawyers, it involves a judge, everyone needs to get paid, right? Court reporter, probate referee, all kinds of people involved. So the fees add up. Next slide, please. All right, so if you do not take the time to state where you want your assets to go when you pass away and who will be charged of that process, as I mentioned earlier, the state of California will decide that for you. So if you're married or have a domestic partner, it will likely be that individual. If you have kids, it'll go to the kids equally. If you do not have kids or grandkids, it will go to all of your parents equally, and then siblings equally. So at some point, the state of California will find someone to give your stuff to. I'd much rather have my clients choose for themselves. They know the dynamics in their circle the best, and they know who should deserve to inherit some of their estate. Next slide, please. Here's another chart illustrating at some point the state will find someone to give your assets to and find someone to go through that process for your estate. Next slide. This illustrates some of the steps needed for probate. So this is a way to justify the high fees that we're going to take a peek at shortly. So when someone passes away and they don't have a trust, let's say they have a will or no will, and they have assets that are a home worth $1 million, subject to a mortgage, they will have to file a petition for probate, publish notices in the paper, mail notices to certain folks, file a bond, obtain a hearing date, prepare an inventory and appraisal, and then involve what's called a probate referee for valuation, give notice to creditors, file an accounting and file distribution and petition for final distribution, mail notices to certain folks, obtain a hearing date, there might be several hearing dates along the road, distribute assets and record the judgment, and eventually file a declaration for final discharge of assets. A lot of steps, and lawyers are involved with all of these steps. Lawyers back in the day were apparently charging too much, so the state had to put a cap on their fees, but it is quite a generous cap. Next slide, please. Here is what people can charge for going through the probate process. So let's go 6 rows down to that $1 million mark. Again, going back to the example of someone who owns a home, a townhome worth $1 million, has a mortgage against it. That is not factored into the fees paid to the attorney here, which across from the $1 million mark is $23,000 to go through the probate process. However, we have to double that $23,000 figure because the personal representative the court appoints to go through that probate process also receives $23,000. These figures are at a minimum. If anything is difficult, it's considered extraordinary. This does not include, probate referee fees, getting the accountant involved, on and on. So these are the minimal fees involved here. Next slide, please. So we're going to look again at that person who owns that townhome here in San Francisco worth $1 million, good round figure, and they have a loan against the property of $300,000 when they pass away. Let's look at what happens on that trust administration side when that takes place. So the net value after subtracting the loan against the property is $700,000. Let's say it makes sense to sell the home. 3 or 4 kids are involved. It's just going to be cleaner. So the trustee and the trust needs to stage the home, clean it up. That's $20,000. So we're taking that off of that $700,000 figure. After that is paid, the balance that will be distributed to loved ones is going to be $680,000. Okay, no probate fees needed here. Let's take that same example on the right-hand side where this homeowner forgot to create a trust or even do a transfer on death deed. So we have that same net value of $700,000. The house needs to be sold, $20,000 for painting, staging, etc. There was a balance there of $680,000, just like the left side. However, in this instance, $23,000 will be taken out as one of the first things paid once that house is sold, to be paid to the attorney appointed by the court, and then another $23,000 to the personal representative the court appoints to go through this process. And again, there can be additional fees taken out. So it's quite a difference. Almost $50,000 less will be distributed to loved ones. Next slide. Sure. Good question. And I will open it up to questions at the end. Revocable means you still own everything in your trust. Irrevocable means you've given it to this other trust, and we rarely do those, where you don't own those assets anymore. There would be no reason typically to create an irrevocable trust. With our clients, we want you in charge of your stuff and the assets to be there until you're no longer here. So you want to typically say revocable trust. Sure. We'll just kind of hang tight here for a sec. Pardon me? Oh, why does an irrevocable trust exist? So if you own assets that are greater than the gift and estate tax exemption that all of us have, which is currently, this is a federal thing, $15 million apiece, or as a married couple, $30 million, people out there do exist, then sometimes those kinds of people consider, I don't need all these assets. I'm going to put some in an irrevocable trust because it gets it out of my taxable estate and allows it to grow and appreciate into that irrevocable trust, which might be set up for grandkids or something. Don't worry, we won't make you look at all the slides again. But I'll open up to questions now. Sure. Good break. I think the office will distribute those. Yeah, just make sure someone who has that emblem on their jacket, which is San Francisco Assessor's Office, has your email address, and I think they would send that to you. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. So the government entities, when dealing with a revocable trust, you are your trust. It's no difference at all. No difference. You'll be your property taxes will not be affected because you still own the property, right? It's not a benefit with respect to property taxes. It's not a disservice to you, a detriment with respect to your property. Everything's the same. If it goes to your kids through your trust, bless you. If it goes to the kids through the trust, everything Assessor-Recorder Torres spoke about earlier applies. So it doesn't change any of that. Good question. Yes. Yeah, we recommend people do not DIY their trust, because what happens is sometimes people go onto some website they have a subscription to, they create a trust. If they're married, there can be different options about how to set it up. Then they forget to put their stuff into it. They don't create their new grant deed and their new preliminary change of ownership report, file it with the county recorder, because a trust that is not funded with assets is really a false sense of security. So creating the trust is just step one. You need to actively put your assets into it, and lawyers typically help with that. So the only estate planning document we are okay with having people do themselves would be an advanced healthcare directive if you're with one of the big institutions around here. The different law firms are different. We're a nonprofit. We're probably, once people give us all of their choices, it takes about 3 weeks to create drafts, which we send back to our clients. We have a team of 5 attorneys with our entity. And then it depends on how long it's going to take you to review those drafts. And then we need to, have you notarize it and stuff. But it could be done in a month or so. Mm-hmm. We're on a sliding scale in San Francisco. There are some special things taking place, which I'll talk about at the end. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change that. They will look at the trust. Oh, the question was, if you have, if let's say your assets through your trust are going to your siblings' kids, right? Nieces and nephews, it's not your child. So you don't get those benefits that Assessor Torres spoke about earlier. Doesn't change it whether you do it in a will and go through probate, or if it's in your trust. They're going to look at the trust and see where your home goes. All right, so we're back on track here. We're going to look, oh, go ahead. One more, and then we're going to leave it for questions at the end. The question here was, if you have a trust and it's more than 5 years old, there could be a problem with the bank taking the certificate of trust to place your bank account into the trust. That seems odd, and I would get a different person to help you at the bank. Make an appointment with a personal banker. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I've never seen that. Yes, one last one. Yeah, irrevocable, it's not yours anymore. So they will likely reassess. Yeah. Revocable, yep, no problem at all, because you are your trust. You still own the assets in your trust. You can sell it. So any entity views you as still owning your home. Okay. All right, so another example, we're going to look at Pamela and see if her estate needs to go through probate. So she passed away and she has the following assets. She has a house worth $800,000. Her deed states that she owns it as Pamela, trustee of the Pamela House. I'm sorry, Pamela Trust. She has 2 retirement accounts and she indicated her brother Ben was a beneficiary on both of those accounts. She has a life insurance policy, and while she did name her elderly parent to be the first beneficiary, Pamela took the time to name a younger beneficiary on it, Leo, her brother, who did outlive Pamela's mother. And then Pamela also has a couple of bank accounts worth a couple $1,000s, and she indicated that her boyfriend by name was the beneficiary there. So looking at everything Pamela has at the time she passed away, do we think there was a probate proceeding needed there? Did her estate go through probate? Okay, it's a little heavier on the nose, so the no's are correct. Pamela did everything correctly. She has living beneficiaries on her bank accounts, life insurance policies, and retirement accounts. And she clearly created a trust because the attorney had her convey her interest to herself as trustee of the trust with no reassessment. She did everything correctly. All right, next slide, please. Let's, next. We will look at Alex, who had assets very similar, and you keep going down a bit. There we go. Again. So Alex also had a home worth $800,000. Okay, good. And his deed states that he owns it, Alex, an unmarried man. He also had 2 retirement accounts, but he forgot to fill out his beneficiary page when he started his last job, and he never got around to it. He also has life insurance, and while he did at least put someone down, regrettably, it was an older parent, and typically parents predecease kids, and Alex forgot to put a younger beneficiary down as a default or contingent beneficiary on his life insurance policy. And then even on his bank accounts, he just kind of flippantly put down my girlfriend as a beneficiary, although there's not much there, so it wouldn't prompt a probate on its own. But let's kind of look at what Alex did here and see if there was a probate proceeding needed. Yes, he didn't do anything correctly. You can look at the next slide. Yep, his home he clearly still owns in his own name. No living beneficiaries on anything. So the probate fees here, which is the first thing paid, the attorney and the representative will get there close to $50,000 right off the top. Next slide. So let's look at that transfer on death deed, which is a relatively new tool that we have in California. Next slide, please. If you own a home, which, around here, none of us have large tracts of agricultural real estate. That's more for the Central Valley of California. But as long as it is a 4-plex or less than that, you can create a transfer on death deed where a lawyer should create this because you want it to be worded correctly. You will put beneficiaries down by name. You can't just put my spouse or my kids down. You have to put people's legal names down. When you pass away, as long as that was recorded, that property, just that property, will go to your named beneficiaries, whoever is alive from the list that you placed on that document. The main thing that is important is obviously it needs to be notarized because it deals with real property, and you have to record it within 60 days of signing it with the notary. If you change your mind with respect to the beneficiary, you have to actively revoke that with the county recorder's office. And then you have to think, I'm exposed to probate, and then actively, once again, utilize some tool to avoid probate, create a trust or create a new transfer on death deed. Next slide, please. That's what it looks like, fairly simple. Main thing is it needs to be notarized. Next slide, please. All right, so, okay, go ahead. About the transfer on death deed? Well, a lawyer creates it. It's not like it's just like a form, yeah. Because you have to make sure to have the legal description of your property in there. You can't just put your address down. It has typically an exhibit attached, which is the proper legal description for your property. Yes. Avoiding probate. Oh, that's property tax reassessment. Yes, that's property taxes. This is avoiding probate. Obviously, of course, follow Assessor Torres's, rules that he set forth to make sure that you are following those rules to at least avoid some reassessment when you pass away. Oh, yes, yes, yes. This person was asking about property taxes. None of what I'm doing is going to change for the better or the worse the property tax situation. So if you are conveying property to your kids while you're alive or upon your passing, everything Assessor-Recorder Torres states applies to doing it through estate planning documents. There's nothing you're doing here to change that law that we all frankly have at this point, okay? Since 2021. All right. We do all of these documents. I'll get to our contact info at the end. Again, a revocable trust and a transfer on death deed are both tools to avoid probate. Our preference is to have people do a trust because you can put bank accounts in a trust and other assets. A transfer on death deed only affects the property that you have put on that deed with the legal description and the APN number. All right, so that's the at death part. And again, I'll open up to questions once again at the end. We're going to discuss the part of estate planning that deals with we're alive but somehow compromised, and we need people whom we wholeheartedly trust to advocate for us in either a financial or healthcare setting. Next slide, please. So we're going to look more closely at the durable power of attorney for financial purposes and the advanced healthcare directive. Next slide. Both of these are important. You plan now while you're with it before you need these documents so that they are present when they are needed. It avoids the potential of having a conservatorship hearing in court where a judge would decide who should advocate for you on healthcare issues and financial issues. Next slide, please. So in all of these documents, you have control as to what you want in the documents and how they're going to be structured. So for instance, in a power of attorney, when I have a single person, they want to make sure oftentimes that this document, this power of attorney I draft for them, states that it only goes into effect if it is accompanied by 2 letters from 2 different physicians stating that they themselves, the principal, is unable to take care of their financial affairs. So it has no power. The people in that document have no power until doctors opine that they have no ability to take care of their financial affairs, and then the nominee can do things in their best interest with respect to financial issues. The authority can be very general. You can give people a lot of leeway as to what they can do for you, or you can really kind of confine their potential powers down the road. Next slide, please. With both of these documents, it's very important to be honest with the strengths and weaknesses of the people you're considering. Don't nominate them to make them feel good or feel like you have to have your kids in order of age. You want someone, obviously, for the power of attorney who knows how to get things done, who files their taxes on time. That would be a good candidate for someone on your power of attorney. However, on the flip side, when you're doing your advanced healthcare directive, you want someone, if you're lucky enough, that has a little bit of experience in the medical field, or just someone who is fine dealing with medical issues. They can walk into a hospital room, see an IV, see blood being drawn, not pass out, right? You want someone who is going to be strong, watching all of that, and be able to stand up to physicians if needed, if they are doing things that you would not want, okay? But it's important to have people who are assertive. It's best to have people sequential, not to force 2 people to work together, because especially with healthcare issues, time is of the essence. So you want people who can be there, act, and say yes to a procedure or no to a procedure. Everyone, of course, has to be an adult. It's good to periodically review your choices. So some of you, let's say with Sutter or Kaiser, may already have a healthcare directive on file that you completed 15 years ago. Might have been your parents who might not be up to the task now. Please revisit your choices and create a new one if needed and place it on file where you receive your medical care. It's also, if you have a change in your life, such as a divorce or marriage, again, revisit your documents here, frankly, all of your documents, because chances are you will want to update those documents. If possible, it's great to have discussions about all of these issues, especially your opinion and stance on what is proper medical care for yourself with the people that you are nominating for that role of potential responsibility. Next slide, please. We create a power of attorney for financial purposes and an advanced healthcare directive to once again avoid another court hearing called a conservatorship proceeding, where if someone's incapacitated and they have not completed a healthcare directive and have not completed a durable power of attorney, the judge gets to notify, their office notifies the family. The family has the opportunity to hire lawyers and present their case in front of a judge as to why they think they are the best choice. Again, the judge is likely going to do the best they can in a 2-hour hearing, but we much rather have you decide for yourself as to who would be appropriate. Next slide. In addition to a medical directive, you can do a POLST, which is a physician orders for life-sustaining treatment, or a do not resuscitate form. Those are documents you complete typically with the help of your physician, typically when you're at the later stages in life. Those do not take the place of a healthcare directive, though, so you also should have a healthcare directive which is consistent with those documents. Next slide, please. This is what a POLST looks like, and then this, next slide, please, is what a DNR looks like. Next slide. All right, so we have covered documents on the left in blue that are important while we're alive, yet if we're compromised down the road, they will kick into gear and help us have a graceful last stage in life. And then the documents on the right, which is a trust and will, which if you notice, once you pass away, that trust, which you could have changed while you're alive, since you're not here, no one can change it. So that trust becomes irrevocable. It's not like the other type of irrevocable trust we were speaking about for very, very wealthy people, but since you are no longer here, no one else can change your trust. So the trust and the will distribute your assets at your passing and nominate guardians if that's appropriate. Next slide, please. So if any of you decide to proceed with estate planning, you will choose a law firm, speak with admin people likely, eventually have a long conversation or a meeting with an attorney where they will get to know you and your family and the dynamics in your circle. They will need some ballpark figures with respect to your financial assets. The things you will not need to share are social security numbers of anyone or account numbers for anything you own. They're going to obtain your choices, usually through a workbook or through some conversations. The attorney will use that to draft all of your documents, which they will review with you. And then you will eventually sign them with a notary and witnesses, okay? So everything's pretty darn formal. Everything in the end is notarized and witnessed, and if it's not, it's typically not effective. Next slide, please. Couple people who forgot to review their documents. I won't go into the grilling details, but let's make sure to review documents if we have existing documents. Next slide, please. This is a little bit about us. Again, we're the Housing and Economic Rights Advocates. I have a team of 5 estate planning attorneys, all of whom are wonderful throughout the state of California. One of our soon-to-be attorneys is out there at a table with all kinds of good information. And I think we have some contact info on this next slide. So your wonderful Assessor-Recorder Torres and their team, we have a great beneficial funding arrangement for San Francisco residents. It's based on, of course, income on last year's tax return, but if you fall within certain parameters, you can essentially get nearly free or very low-cost estate planning with HERA. We do lots of seminars with them. We think they're wonderful and very proactive and progressive and reaching all of you, most of whom are homeowners. So this is some info. And I will open up to questions. Yes. Yeah, so the question is, when someone passes away and a revocable trust was created and items were put into the trust, property, bank accounts, there's a little trust admin work. It's not like a probate, but there's some things that successor trustee will do. There are some, but it's pretty straightforward. All right, I think I'm getting the boot here. We have someone else coming up. Thank you so much, everyone. We have a table out in front, okay?
Thank you so much, Kendra. Okay, everyone. We will have a short break. We have about 8 minutes. We have some light refreshments out there for y'all. And then we have our last presentation, which is for Women's Heads of Households panel. So please enjoy some light refreshments. If you need to use some of the facilities, please do so. And then please come back to enjoy the last bit of the programming. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. We'll roughly start in about like 5 minutes. There's still some lines out there, so once those start going down, we can start. So let's give it about 5 more minutes, and then we can start our amazing panel/fireside chat. So thank you so much for your patience.
All right, we're going to get started in about 1 minute. 1 minute. So if you have anything else you want to grab or use the take a what did we say? Take a bio break. Go ahead and do that. And then we'll get started. Yes. And then just a reminder for everyone, if you registered, we'll be able to send you the PowerPoint presentations to the email that you provided in the registration. If you did not register, if you can, once us, who is anyone in the room from staff that has note cards? Once we start, I'll make sure that, yeah, to have staff, you can put your email down on note card and we'll get you the slides. All right, we'll give it about 30 more seconds, 30 more seconds. Just one moment, I'm going to ask about. Okay, all right, great. So just again on the card question and emails, we'll have that taken care of at the very end of the session, and we'll make an announcement outside as well. Well, thank you all for being here for this final portion of our Family Wealth Conference. I hope you've had a good time being able to engage from the presentations. For anyone who's in the overflow room, thank you. There's also space down here if you want to be in person. But what we want to be able to talk about now is financial empowerment through a very specific lens. This is our Financial Empowerment in Women Head of Household panel. And before I go any further into this panel, introduce our speakers, I want to talk about some statistics just to ground us that have been provided by the Commission on the Status of Women. Mothers who are working full-time earn 69 cents for every dollar that a father makes, a gap of $19,000 annually, rising to $35,000 for Black mothers, $38,900 for Latina mothers, and $40,000 a year for Indigenous American mothers. Women make up 47% of the workforce, but 65% of low-wage workers. In California, 53% of women renters are rent burdened versus 47% of men. That number rises to 62% for Black women, 64% for senior women, and 70% of women who are living alone, and 76% of single mothers. All of those disparities that I just mentioned in these statistics, those deepen as you start talking about communities of color, immigrants, and members of the LGBTQ+ community. So it tells us something very urgent that we'll be discussing today, that people who are responsible for most often holding families together are facing some of the steepest barriers to building wealth at all. And that's why this conversation really matters. So I want to go ahead and get into that right now. Joining us are two incredible leaders Diane Jones-Lowry, who is a president of the Commission on the Status of Women, and Dr. Becca Loya, who is research director at the Treasurer and Tax Collector's Economic Justice Office that the Treasurer introduced earlier today. So please join me in welcoming them. If both of you could please just introduce yourselves, your name, your role, and also why it's important to be here today.
I'll start since I have the mic. I am Diane Jones-Lowry, and I'm the president of the Commission on the Status of Women. The purpose of the commission, just so you know, and the department, is really to advocate for gender equity across the city and county of San Francisco. Along with Mayor Lurie, and we just released the Women's Agenda, which really is a plan for health, safety, civic leadership, and economic mobility and security for women in San Francisco. And if you're interested in that, because I think it really speaks to one of the reasons why we're here today, you can find the full Women's Agenda on the Department on the Status of Women's website, and it'll give you a lot more detail.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name, as Joaquin said, is Becca Loya. I am the research director at the Economic Justice Center, which is within the Treasurer's Office in San Francisco. And I will tell you a bit more about our work later on the panel, and I know you got to hear from our treasurer this morning as well. This work matters to me both personally and professionally. Personally, I was raised by a single mom, and I saw her every day struggling to get by with not enough income and no assets, nothing saved to fall back on. And that drove me to work in this area of economic justice, and to pay particular attention in all my work across my career about how every challenge that's out there, it tends to hit women hardest and hit women of color the hardest of all, especially those who are single parents. So I have paid close attention to that in my work, and I'm just honored to be here today and be part of this conversation.
Great, thank you. I echo all of those sentiments about how important it is to be here. Allowing data to inform these determinations about why it's important to have very specific community conversations or gender conversations when it comes to financial empowerment, education, and financial realities that especially women and women of color are facing in our communities. So just to ask both of you, what does this phrase financial empowerment mean to you?
Well, for me, I never did answer the question of why it's important for me to be here. I have lived in San Francisco for 35 years. I am a proud resident of District 7, and I raised my family here. And now my daughter wants to come back here and live, not with me.
Diane, can you raise the microphone into your, just closer to your mouth, I think.
That's exactly right. She wants to come, yeah, she wants to come back. And she's got a good job, but she can barely afford to do rent, let alone purchase. So it's important for me that her and her friends and the people who have been part of the life of San Francisco for so long can continue to live here. What is economic empowerment? To me, it's freedom. It's the ability to do what you want to do in your life, be responsible, but also be able to make the decisions that allow you to do what works for you and your family in your life. So that's what economic empowerment means to me.
Absolutely. So I agree with that understanding of financial empowerment. And I'll just add on that, to me, that idea of financial empowerment, having the tools and information you need as an individual, goes hand in hand with the idea of economic justice. And so that's like what we as government can do. We can build systems, we can build tools and opportunities, and even invest in them to help make it possible for you to access wealth, tap into it, and build it. And I think that's part of what we're going to talk with you about today, is bringing those two things together.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowry, Through your work, can you talk about some of the particular challenges that women of Black and Brown women, heads of household, are facing in maintaining and growing wealth through homeownership or otherwise?
Sure. You heard some of the statistics that the assessor shared at just before we started. But when you look at some of the structural challenges that face women overall, not just women of color, but women overall make 83% of what men make. When you look at, and those are white women, when you break it down even further, uh, Black women make, what is it? I think 64%. And Latinas make 55% of what white men make. So we're not starting at the same place, the same work, but we are not getting paid the same wage. So we're already talking about a disadvantage. And I think that we need to think about that as it relates to our ability to support our families, invest in our families, and actually invest over time, because we know the more you put in from an investment standpoint, the better you will be. And if you have less to put in, you're not going to be able to reap the reward. So I think those are the kinds of challenges that women face. But I also don't want to leave it on a doom and gloom basis. Over 20 million women in the United States own homes. And quite honestly, over the last 10 years, the trajectory has been that women have become homeowners at a rate that outpaces that of men. So that says something about the work, the commitment, the sacrifice that women have made to invest in their own success down the line.
Dr. Loya, anything to add? Okay. For you, Dr. Loya, I mean, beyond homeownership, which can feel very much out of reach here, are there other opportunities for San Franciscans to consider building wealth? Earlier today, we talked about there is no wrong time to get engaged. We talked a little bit or touched a little bit about regret we might have about choices we did or did not make in the past, not allowing those to serve as barriers to beginning a financial odyssey. But when we're talking about building wealth for themselves, for their children, for the future, what other opportunities are you asking people to consider, or what are you finding in your work?
Thanks so much for this question. So I think I have good news for people in this room. So if you're a parent or a grandparent, you have children in your family, there is probably already money set aside for that child for their future. And I'm going to tell you about a few of the programs that are available to kids in San Francisco and more broadly in California. But I want to tell you the logic here. So there are several programs I'm going to tell you about that are children's savings accounts would be one way to refer to them. And the logic here is that when we as public entities invest even a little bit of money in a child's future, and we tell them about it early and often, and we tell their parents and their loved ones early and often, we have invested in your child. There is some money set aside for them for their future. It actually makes it more likely that those kids are going to go to college someday or go to other education after high school. And that can open up pathways, we are hoping, for success and economic mobility in the future. So that's the idea that is behind all of these programs. So the first one I want to tell you about, my office actually runs. It's called San Francisco Kindergarten to College. And so every child who enters a public school in San Francisco, an SFUSD school or a district affiliated charter, we open an account for them. We set aside $50 in public funds for them to use for any type of education after high school. And families can deposit their own money to those accounts, but they don't have to. There are ways that you can grow that balance without families depositing. It's called Kindergarten to College. So if a family logs onto their account once a school year, we will put in $20 for them. If a family puts in a little bit of their own money, we will match it. If the child participates in a contest or event, we will also put money into their account. And the coolest thing, I'm the research director, so I'm very excited about this, but I think you will be too. Our program has actually demonstrated significant impacts on college going. So that means kids who participate in kindergarten to college are actually more likely to enroll in college when they graduate. And we have the biggest effects for students of color who are underrepresented in higher ed. So that means the idea that was behind this program, it's actually working. We've graduated 4 classes of students now. So if you have a kid in your life who is in a San Francisco school, please go home, or come and tell me, but go home, check out San Francisco Kindergarten to College and find out how to access just by logging in. We're going to give additional dollars into that account. So that's our local program for students. And then there are a number of state programs as well. There's a program called Cal Kids, which sets aside $500 and up to $1,500 for low-income students in public schools in California. And there's additional deposits for kids who are experiencing homelessness or who are in the foster care system. There's an additional program. So if you remember one thing, remember K2C, but I'm going to tell you there's even more, and you can come to our office to find out. There's a new program that just launched, which I believe Margaret Libby talked about earlier today, called HOPE accounts, which are special $3,000 accounts already set aside for youth who have been in long-term foster care or who lost a parent or caregiver to COVID. And there's also a federal program that just came out called 530A Trump accounts, which is setting aside $1,000 for babies who are born basically during this presidential administration. It's a lot to keep track of. Please do feel free to visit our Economic Justice Center website, or just Google San Francisco K2C and it'll get you partway there to learn about you. Get access for that child that you care about in your life, and then we can help you figure out some of these other accounts. So I'll leave it there. That's a lot of information, but it's an idea that there's good research actually out there that even small amounts of assets and savings can have a huge impact on a child's future and on a family's well-being. And so we as a city are getting into that space through this program of investing in every single child.
That's wonderful. And as we were talking about earlier as well, again, remembering, you can go to the Treasurer and Tax Collector's office. You can visit with the Economic Justice Project within that office to get answers to all of the other resources that might be available. So just remembering, any door can be helpful in getting answer to these questions. Commissioner Lowry, anything else to add in terms of the opportunities that you've been discussing with fellow commissioners about economic opportunities that women specifically should be thinking about, or that you've seen them take advantage of that gives you hope about economic empowerment?
I don't have specific programs, but what I can say is, well, I actually do have some specific programs that the city has put in place recently to help families take advantage of the opportunity to work and grow and invest in their families. One is a paid parental leave program. This was just launched, last week, I think. I went to the ribbon cutting by Supervisor Danny Sauter, and it was passed by Mayor Lurie. And what that allows is for parents to actually have time to be with their children when they are after they've had children. And I imagine it is, even if you adopt children, have time for that bonding and to be paid for that. So that is one example of a program
One other example is, and they were out here today with a resource table, is the Mayor's Office on Housing and Community Development. They have a few programs that offer, hold on a second, I gotta look at it. Lower rate lending opportunities for if you are interested in purchasing a home. So the city has a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but they have programs that allow you to invest in yourself, but getting some help. And I think that's probably one of the things that is most important, is that you shouldn't have to do it alone. You have support and programs that can help you. So I'm hoping that you take advantage of some of the tables that were out here today sharing their resources, because it's important that you are able to take advantage of those. And it will really benefit you tremendously.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Can you, Dr. Loya, talk a little bit more about some of the programs that are also available through the center that can help families build their wealth? If we didn't get to cover them, are there other details you want to share with the audience?
Yes, so our office is called the Economic Justice Center. We're within the Treasurer's Office, and I do want to share a few programs that we have. All of our programs are free. They are available to anyone who lives, works, or receives services in the city. We do not ask people to provide evidence of citizenship or anything else, so in case that's a question on your mind. So I shared with you already about our kindergarten to college program. We also have a free financial counseling program that'll offer free one-on-one confidential financial counseling, again, to anybody who lives, works, or receives services in the city. Some of our counselors are actually sitting out tabling today if you want to meet somebody today, but you can also book a free appointment through our website. And what counselors can help with is really whatever someone comes to them with. If someone comes with a concern about budgeting, or maybe building or improving a credit score, maybe it's about saving, home ownership, reducing debt. Just to throw out one number, our counseling program has helped people reduce $3.6 million in debt through this program, and people gain an average of, I think it's 70 points on their credit by participating in counseling. So it's a tremendous resource that is available to you. Our office also runs a program called Bank On San Francisco. And the goal of this program is that we know bank accounts are not always affordable. They can be expensive. They can have a lot of hidden fees or costs that can kind of make people a little nervous about wanting to go and open a bank account. Or if someone, let's say, doesn't have one of the traditional forms of identification, or maybe you have, or someone you know has a negative banking history, we have identified a set of accounts that are called Bank On certified accounts, which we have verified are low cost, they're safe, they accept alternative forms of identification, and they will talk with people who have and have methods of getting past certain kinds of negative banking histories. And the goal here is to get more San Franciscos banked instead of using other financial services like check cashers and payday lenders. You hear me, right? They can be so expensive, even though we know they're convenient. We're hoping to get more people into safe, affordable bank accounts instead. So you can find information about those Bank On accounts on our site. We also work on reducing government-imposed fines and fees that disproportionately burden, that basically have an overly heavy burden on low-income communities. And so through that program, we have worked to eliminate more than $100 million in fines and fees. But something you might want to know about just now today is, for instance, if you or someone you know gets a parking ticket that you're having trouble affording, for instance, we have worked with the MTA to create a waiver program and a discount program for people who are experiencing hardship. So if you run into those kinds of barriers that we all, those struggles like a parking ticket or something like that, or a fine or a fee that you're having trouble with, there are resources within the city to help with that. And I know that's not the same thing as wealth building, but it's hard to build wealth if you're, paying out a whole lot of your money on fines and fees. And the last thing I want to mention is we just launched a new initiative called Stop Scams SF, which is an effort to help prevent scams and fraud, which are extremely common now everywhere, and to also help people respond, and have people who have experienced fraud and scams get involved and actually help their neighbors and family members to prevent additional fraud. So we're going to be doing some communications with people. We're doing listening in community, and we're also going to be doing some policy work to try to address this issue that's getting kind of worse and worse.
Great. Thanks for discussing some of the very the specifics there. Are there other for you, Commissioner? Are there other opportunities that you want to see women taking advantage of that you and your fellow commissioners have been discussing? Really thinking about building wealth, those individual actions that you want to reinforce as well.
Yeah, I think when wealth is not just about income, it is also about financial knowledge and education. It is also about access to opportunities to build your wealth. And it's also about personal responsibility. And I think that that's important. I'll give an example, and it is an example based on my lived experience. When I came to San Francisco and wanted to buy a home, we were in a market, this was a long time ago, but it hasn't really changed. We were in a market where there was multiple overbids. There were, it was very difficult, challenging for us. This was a 2-family household. We weren't making a lot of money, but enough for a down payment, and we still couldn't afford a home. So one of the things we did is we stepped back a little bit and realized that our realtor was kind of pushing us to the max, meaning you can afford to do X, Y, and Z, so you need to buy that. We took personal responsibility and said, well, if we do that and one of us loses a job, what are we going to do? So we decided to look at a different level of home ownership, so that we didn't extend ourselves to a place where we were uncomfortable. I think some of those things matter when you are thinking about building wealth. It allowed us to be able to afford our monthly payments, and it also allowed us to be able to save so that we were able to do the things that we wanted to do, continue to build and invest in our home, and also have money to put aside and raise our family and send our kids to school. So it's a combination. Wealth building is not just about your income. It's about a combination of decisions and opportunities.
I really enjoy the specific examples that you're providing when education matters, when financial literacy matters, when awareness of programs are mattering, so that any scenario that occurs, you're ready for it. Are there any other examples like that? Just without our notes, with just basic conversations and questions, when you're talking with other heads of household that are women, what else is coming up for them, or for you when you're talking about interactions with members of the public on what is most concerning for you? When it comes to these questions, some people tell me, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to begin. I don't think I can begin anymore. Lost opportunities. How do you speak to people that you've been in contact with about those questions, anxieties, concerns for either one of you?
So, I think that's a really good question, because most of the time we have these conversations with our friends and our family, and we wonder, how are we going to make the decisions that we need to make? And I think part of it is being realistic about what is happening here, but also deciding, one thing, here's a statistic that just blew me away. Homeowners have a $430,000 jump on renters in terms of their in terms of their personal wealth. And that is because your home value increases, you're making an investment into your property. Whereas with renting, which is what I did for most of my life until I purchased a home, you are not investing in anything. So you want to build wealth over time, and sometimes it requires that you sacrifice certain things. Another example is we had a car that we should have probably gotten rid of a long time ago, but we decided we weren't going to take that money and invest it in a car. We were going to keep the one that was running and use that money to ensure that we had security in our home. So I hear that from people all the time about the decisions that they personally make. Does that mean it's available to everyone? It really depends on your own personal situation, but it is important that you decide what your goal is and then find help and support and reach out to particularly these city offices that have resources for you so that you can meet your goal. It's not going to drop in your lap, I can tell you that. But what it will do, what you can do, is make a goal and try to achieve that.
I think that's great advice. We've been hearing a lot in our office about, of course, affordability is a huge issue. Prices are going up. Of course, our beautiful city is an expensive one to live in, and that's challenging. We've been hearing a lot of anxieties as well about changes in public benefits and other kinds of concerns about that, and we see that it's hard for families. Families, unfortunately, are having to make these impossible decisions between, am I saving for a home or for my retirement or for my child's future, or am I even having enough to kind of make it day to day? And these are fundamentally, I think they're impossible questions, but I think our financial counselors do an amazing job of really sitting with people and hearing, as you're saying, Diane, what are your specific circumstances? What are your priorities and needs? And let's make a plan together. And I can't really overstate how valuable that can be, because it's truly overwhelming. And the idea, I'm really proud that our city is able to provide this one-on-one intensive resource to people who can reach out. Yeah, please. I hope you do afterwards. I think it can be transformative for individuals. We can't reach every single San Franciscan, but I hope we'll reach all of you, and I hope you'll tell your friends also.
Yeah, I just very much appreciate those really just human experiences that people are having that lead them to reconsider the importance of financial planning. Something as simple as having a budget, something as simple as I'm going to reach out to the office in the center to access those resources. I'm going to do my online research. I know that something is possible. Knowing what the what is equally as important as where can I find that opportunity, and be honest and clear-eyed about what the trade-offs might be. Just personally, my mom became disabled, lost her eyesight at the same time she went through a divorce. Was at a huge disadvantage during that process and lost all of the investment that she placed in her home, plus the home that she shared with her husband. And luckily, because she was resourceful, she was able to find a way to make the resources that she did have work for her as a single disabled woman who happened to be a senior. And so all of these elements that you're talking about come into play in good times, in hard times, and really difficult times. So I just want to say thank you to the two of you for reinforcing that. What is one thing you want to leave with the audience about your body of work and what you've seen in relationship to women and opportunities for economic empowerment, financial literacy, home ownership, or wealth building? Simple question, light. Commissioner, Doctor, either one can go first.
I guess what I would like I'd like people to leave this room with is that, like I said, it's not doom and gloom, but it is personal responsibility to a certain extent, understanding that women in particular are coming from a place of deficit, meaning our economic opportunities are from a place of deficit. What I've seen is, despite that, women are able to overcome that and achieve even more, which is why women right now are owning homes more than men. So taking that personal responsibility, creating a plan, and it's so simple to say that, but actually developing a plan for success will allow you to take the steps and understand what you need to do to be successful. I think about the work that we do on the Commission on the Status of Women in support of the Department on the Status of Women, and I think about how resourceful and determined women are when it comes to achieving the goals that they need to achieve. Even when there's a two-parent household, women are usually the ones who are driving a lot of the decisions. I know that from having worked in marketing for most of my life. Women make 70 to 80% of the purchasing decisions and most of the household decisions. So if that's the case, then we have to be the ones who are that have the knowledge and the drive to want to move forward with our economic empowerment. So I don't know, I'm just happy that I was able to be here today and would be more than happy to talk to anyone about the work that we do on the commission.
All right. I'll just keep it simple that, I want you to know, I want all the women and families and everyone in this room to know that the city has resources available to you. They're free and they're available, and we're happy to help you find them. So the idea that the city invests in every single child who goes to school in our city from day one through kindergarten to college, and the idea that we have that free financial counseling and the other programs through my office and all the other city offices. I know it can be a lot to navigate, but getting in with one counselor, for instance, can help you unlock and navigate across the many departments and many complex other services and resources that are available to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Loya. Thank you so much, Commissioner Lowry. May we have a round of applause for I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing, both as a volunteer and also as a doctor leading this research, so we can see clearly where our attention must be paid. It's these conversations, like your presence being here, that allow us to focus, whether personally or as an organization or as a city or as a community, on issues that we can tackle together. I hope that this opportunity for you today has been extraordinarily useful. I hope that you remember that. Do we have note cards to pass out to people? Well, great that everyone got note cards to put your email address on or your contact information on if you have any follow-up questions for us, so we can also send you all of the slides that we presented throughout the day. The note cards can be passed out if you raise your hand, and we'll bring them over to you right now. We will pass some more. In fact, we'll rip up some of my cards so we can pass some of these out. We can also rip up some of mine and pass them out. Just give us one moment and we'll pass them out. But for everyone here today, I think what I would love you to take away with is that there are resources available to you that, yes, of course, are available through AI. Yes, of course, are available online. But there are also organizations and people that can really walk you through this, not just one time, but many times. As I think you are hearing today, this is a practice. It takes discipline, it takes consistency to engage on financial budgeting and planning. And don't be hard on yourselves if there's little missteps every once in a while. Give yourself some grace around, I need some more time to delve into this. I need some more time to have a conversation with my family about estate planning. Again, I come back to this question of, I wish I would have done more. You're doing what you can, which is right now engaging in this conversation. So just give yourself that permission to take the step of where you are, where you're at, and engaging in our resources. Anyone else need a note card? If you can just raise your hand. We'll come by and get them for you. And you can hand them to Abby. Will catch you as you're walking out. Abby, if you could raise your hand. Yeah. Now, are there any additional just basic questions you might have for our panelists? Yes. A dollar saved is a dollar earned. Mm-hmm. So two comments. One, remembering that savings are actually dollars saved, which is why when we talk about resources for the assessor's office of a homeowner's exemption that leads to $79,000 in $79 that you're not paying, that's something saved. When you're talking about jobs and union jobs and benefits associated, really paying attention to those issues as well, because if we're talking about affordability, it's comprehensive. So thank you for that. Yes. And then I'll come back here and here.
With all these decisions that I have to make. Would your office be able to help me with that?
Yes, so this was a question about a senior who owns her own home who wants help making decisions about reverse mortgages and other things. And yes, we have financial counselors who actually specialize in issues that seniors face. And so I hope you will, I'm happy to help you figure out how to make an appointment for financial counseling. And that is an offer open to everyone here. Yes.
Great. Let me come back here with the mask on. Yes.
Yes, so this was a question about she was able to find our kindergarten to college website, which is a city website. Cal Kids is run by the state, and so they do have their own website, which might be the most direct path for you. We did also put them on our Economic Justice Center website, but maybe it's easier for you to just, if you Google Cal Kids, you will find it. You can also feel free to reach out to our kindergarten to college team from our website, and we can help you find the other programs. And the HOPE account is also run by the state treasurer's office, and they have their own website. I will say, since I got this question, that we are part of an effort to make a single website where people can go and learn what accounts their children or dependents are eligible for, and make it easy for them to find them and remember the information. And we just launched a partnership to some special funding and a grant to get that done. But we don't have it yet. But we hear you. It's ridiculous to send people to 4 different places to claim money. They do. Yes, the school district does. They've been a tremendous partner for K2C, and they do promote it through the parent portal and through a number of platforms. And we're always working to boost information about K2C more. Yeah.
Great. I've got time for about one more question, but I would like to hear just generally from the hands first. What's the theme of your question? Is it a
Oh, it's just women heads of households. Yes. Yes.
So the question was, how accessible are these programs? And the answer is they are accessible for any woman as a head of household. Yes.
We do not have a conference planned right now. You know what? I'm going to turn this over to someone from the department who can answer that question for you.
Hi, I'm Denise. I work for the Department on the Status of Women. You've seen our sister department, the Human Rights Commission, tabling in the hallway. We don't do direct programs and direct services for folks, but we are working with some of our partners right now to do an event. October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. That's a big issue for us. We're working with a handful of our community partners on some conversations with that. We're working on a maternal health event, also likely for October. The first week of October is Nurse Care Midwifery Week. I messed that up. And we're also working on some presentations and some conversations for early next year, particularly around transitional housing needs for women as they're aging, et cetera. More will be coming out soon. I put all of this on our social media. The Instagram handle is at SFDOSW. So stay tuned. I promise you we'll give ample notice. But right now, those are the kind of the three things we have in the pipeline. The Instagram handle is at SFDOSW, San Francisco Department on Status Women.
Great, thank you so much. We don't have any time for questions, but staff and I will be available here if you want to come up to me afterwards. I just want to say thank you to the two of you again for being here and making the time. It's the first time we've had a panel like this as part of this a conference, and again, to all of you, I hope you've been able to take away something tangible from the conference today. Thank you for joining. Thank you to all the City College staff for making this possible. Staff who've been doing one-on-one services, all the community organizations that have been tabling, and thank all of you for letting us know the need is here. We can't wait until next year to do it again. Look for us online. Look for our programming, and if you have questions, reach out to us. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You know what? I was gonna send excuse me. It was great hearing you. I just got the tail end of it. I'll be contacting you. Please do. Definitely. Yes. Also, the Social Security Administration has that they're going to be reaching it out. Yeah. It's not in place yet. When I first saw parents saying and your son files cases next week, there will be a start by 4:45, 37. And now I'm still. The budget was going to get